Hey guys, Tony Bryson here, and today we're gonna break down the cons and the pros to actually either buying or renting a home and which one is better financially overall. And by the way, in this video, I'm gonna give you guys 3 simple rules to apply whenever you want to decide like, hey, should I buy now or should I rent for now? What exactly should I do? These 3 rules are gonna help you a ton. And by the way, guys, I also do post videos on this channel every single day, so make sure to also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notified every time I post a new video. And on top of that, also destroy the like button gently if you may. And now the first thing I have to tell you guys is this, okay? If you're watching this video right here, you're most likely gonna watch another video about renting and owning a home and how to do it correctly, how much to buy it for. You're probably gonna do that. But overall, guys, okay, all these videos are just options, and they're supposed to be able to guide you to a good decision, but they're not supposed to tell you exactly what to do, because everyone has a different opinion when you ask them exactly what do you think about buying a home, when to buy a home, and what price to actually buy a home for. For example, guys, you have Kevin O'Reilly, the guy from Shark Tank, makes a lot of money, yes, but his idea is this, guys. He says all the time, Tommy, you want to buy a home at 1/3 of your take-home pay after taxes. On top of that, only buy a home when you're ready to actually settle down and actually have a family. And then Dave Ramsey on the other side says, well, you actually want to buy a home at no more than 1/4 of your take-home pay. On top of that, get a 15-year mortgage, pay down all your debt, and on top of that, make sure you have 6 months worth of emergencies, okay? And obviously, that is a big ask, and it might take you a very long time to actually go out there and buy a home if you follow Dave Ramsey's rules. And on top of that, number 3, you also have Graham Stephan that says, hey, don't get a 15-year mortgage, get a 30-year mortgage, okay? The idea is, okay, that everyone has an opinion. Everyone is gonna tell you, hey, do it this way, or that way, or this way. But overall, what you need to do is know exactly what you want and use this information to guide you to make the decision that's best suited for you. That's all I'm going to try to do in this video right here. I'm not going to tell you, hey, do this or do that, because in reality, everyone is different and everyone has a different situation going on. And by the way, everyone thinks that, hey, you know what? When I buy a home, I'm going to stay there for a very long time. So basically, I have to make sure I make the right decision. But in reality, if you think you're going to stay there, statistically proven, guys, okay, the average person moves homes every 5 years, okay? And on top of that, they move around 11 times in a lifetime. So in reality, the odds of you actually staying in a home are a lot more different than you actually think. In reality, you might actually move, okay? So just putting that out there. And by the way, these rules are kind of like not applicable if you just want to buy real estate to just invest. But it's still good to know them because you still can use them to actually buy some real estate to also invest into it and rent it out as rental property. Just putting that out there. And now the first rule I want to break down, guys, is basically, well, Tommy, how much can I actually go out there and pay for a house, and how much should it actually cost me on a monthly basis when it comes to my mortgage, okay? By the way, this highly depends on one factor, and that one factor is, well, how big is your down payment? And on top of that, how much money do you have coming in every single year, as in your income, okay? Now, the idea is you want to make sure whenever you buy a house, your mortgage is no more than 1/3 of your take-home pay. So Kevin O'Reilly, in this case, is actually right with his opinion, okay? That's the idea. Now, if you actually try to make it, for example, half of your take-home pay, then in reality, you might put a lot of financial stress on you if anything pops up and you need to pay for it and you can't afford it. And by the way, I always recommend you have at least 6 months worth of expenses as an emergency fund, and that way you're good to go also. Because why? Because we also had a pandemic and a lot of people couldn't pay their mortgage because basically they didn't have any money in reserve, and you do not want to be that person. So 6 months or 3 months is the rule that I give all the time whenever buying a house. Or for example, even if you don't own a home or you don't want to own a home in a while, you should still have up to 6 months or 3 months of an emergency fund just in case anything happens to you or you manage to lose your job by accident, okay? That's the point. Now, here is the math to why this is so important that you actually do it and you don't want to violate this rule, okay? So the idea is, guys, okay, the average American has a household income of around $63,179. Now, the idea is if you follow the 1/3 rule, in reality, you can only really buy a home of around $250,000 if you're putting down a down payment of 10%. So your payments are going to be on average every single month around $1,400 $475.49. And by the way, if you have an income of $63,000, in reality, after taxes, it's going to be closer to around $55,000 if you're married, and I'm not including income tax, only federal, okay? I'm just putting that out there. So overall, if you buy the house for $250,000 and the payments are like around $1,475 every single month or so, in reality, that's only going to be around 32% of your actual take-home pay, which is less than 1/3, obviously, okay? So the idea is you're right around the ballpark. Now tell me, why exactly does this rule apply, and why should I make it 1/3 of my pay? The answer is this, guys, okay? Whenever you're buying a house, you don't just have the mortgage. You also have, for example, your expenses. What happens if the roof breaks down, or for example, your house is infected? Whatever it is, the point is you have to have enough money on the side so that you control it. And that's why if you go, for example, half of your pay, but for example, you also have a car, you also have kids, and also expenses, the point is you're probably not going to be able to afford it. And then the house becomes a burden instead of an actual investment in a sense for the future, okay? That is the reason why you want to keep it at least to 1/3 of your income. And the idea is, if you want to buy a house that's even more expensive, the idea is what you have to do is save up more money for a down payment, and that way when you pay for it, it is still at least 1/3 of your take-home pay. But then again, you also have to think about the opportunity cost of the high down payments you're going to be making in that home, okay? But overall, 1/3 is the rule, and the reason is, well, because if you don't do that, it's gonna get very risky if anything, for example, breaks down in the house, or for example, you lose your job, or for example, you might have a very high expense month, and then you won't know exactly what to do. So in this case, just to be clear, if you cannot buy a home and you cannot make it at least 1/3 of your actual take-home pay, the answer to your question is, should I rent or buy? The answer is, well, you should rent, because when you're renting, you know for a fact that your expenses are going to be fixed based on whatever your rent actually is. But buying a house, you don't really know exactly what's going to happen next with the maintenance and what actually can come up next, okay? So the idea is, if you can't afford it, you want to rent. If you can't afford it, then go ahead and you can actually go out there and buy a home using the 1/3 of your actual take-home pay rule. And now guys, number 2 is actually called the 5% rule, and I found this rule by a YouTuber called Ben Felix. His channel is linked down below. Check it out. It's an amazing channel. But the idea is, guys, okay, whenever you're renting versus owning a home, you cannot compare the payments as being equal, even though they might look equal on the surface level. For example, oh, my house is going to cost me $2,000 every single month, but my rent is going to cost me $2,000 every single month also, so I might as well just get a home. But in reality, it's a lot more complicated than that, according to the 5% rule. So for example, guys, okay, whenever you're renting a home, or for example, an apartment, you know that the only cost to actually living in that home is just your rent. If anything breaks down and it's not your fault, the landlord has to cover it and you don't have to worry about it whatsoever. So in reality, if your rent is $2,000, you know that the only cost you're going to have there is just a $2,000 expense, and that is about it. However, when it comes to the 5% rule and buying a home with an equal mortgage of $2,000 per month, in actuality, the expense is actually a lot higher. Now, let me explain, guys, okay? For example, guys, the 5% rule is made out of 1% for maintenance, 1% for property taxes, and also 3% for your interest expense, okay? So in actuality, if you're buying a home, you have to cover all these things, around 5% of the property value every single year. But while you're actually renting, you won't actually have all those expenses whatsoever, because you're only paying $2,000, and the landlord has to cover everything else, and that is the idea. However, to dive even deeper here, okay guys, if you're going to buy a home that's going to cost around $2,000 every single month, for example, in interest and also capital payments, in actuality, if you're putting down 10%, that home is going to cost you around $482,000, and 1% for property taxes is around $4,200 every single year, and also 1% for maintenance is another $4,200 every single year, and 3%, I don't know what just happened there, and 3% for your interest is going to cost you an extra $12,531, but that's already included in the mortgage, okay? But the point is, okay, the cost of renting is just the cost of renting, but the cost of owning a home is a lot more than just, hey, a $2,000 mortgage, because you also have other expenses that you're not actually including inside of the mortgage, because again, they're unrecoverable also. And overall, guys, you have to remember something. I'm not including in this equation inflation and also the cost of opportunity, because it'll get very, very complex very quickly. But the general idea is this, okay? Whenever you're renting something for $1,000, that's the expense right there. But whenever you're buying something and the mortgage is $1,000, in reality, you have a lot more expenses that actually go into it. So overall, buying a home is actually more expensive always, most of the time, than actually just going out there and renting. So in this case, if all you can afford is a $2,000 rent payment, then obviously rent, because the $2,000 mortgage payment is not the same thing, okay? That is the idea. So you have two options here. You either save up more money for a larger down payment, okay? Or for example, you go ahead and you buy a cheaper home. But overall, it is not the same thing. So always keep in mind the 5% rule when it comes to comparing a payment for rent and also a payment for mortgage, okay? Always keep that in mind. And now, guys, the final rule to this video is just patience, okay? So far, you know the 5% rule and also the 1/3 rule, but overall, that's really all you need. So in reality, all you have to do is be patient. Find a home you can afford, and if you are actually renting right now, that's fine also. As long as you can basically save up to actually go ahead and save for the home you want to eventually get. That's the idea. But don't have like a massive rent and then you can never actually go ahead and buy a home. That's not what I'm telling you here in this video. The overall idea is rent while you can and then buy a home you can actually afford the home. And like Charlie Munger says, one of the smartest men in America, he says the perfect time to actually buy a home is when you can afford it and when you actually need it, okay? That's the overall point. It is very simple. Do not complicate it whatsoever. Do not listen to a bank that's giving you a lot more money for a house you know you cannot afford. The idea is 1/3 of your take-home pay, and also keep in mind the 5% rule. And as long as, for example, you're renting, make sure to also build your emergency fund, and on top of that, pay off the debt you actually have. And that way, when you go ahead and buy your home, whatever you want to do, you can actually go in there without having massive debts and also massive payments on top of your mortgage also. And by the way, okay guys, whenever it comes to, for example, buying a house you can't afford is the equivalent, okay, of me going out there and buying a Lamborghini, okay, that I can't afford, and then me having one expense, one flat tire, or for example, one broken windshield, and now I cannot repair it whatsoever, and now I have to give it back, okay? So be very careful, be patient, and overall, guys, remember, this advice is just meant to guide you, not tell you what to do, okay? That is the idea here. And overall, guys, comment down below and let me know, did this actually help you deciding, or did it not help you? Comment down below, let me know. And as always, if you enjoyed this video right here, well, like this video, and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. On top of that, follow my second channel called The Tommy Bryson Show, link down below. It's hilarious, you're gonna love it. And also, follow me on Instagram, Tommy Bryson. On top of that, if you want to watch another video about investing and how it works, watch this video right here. Click my picture. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.